John Rivers had spent 65 years building an empire. His name was etched into skyscrapers, luxury resorts, and billion-dollar tech companies. From the outside, people saw a man who had it all: wealth, power, and prestige. But in truth, John's life had long been hollow. His beloved wife, Emily, had passed away 15 years ago after a long battle with leukemia. They had dreamed of children, but fate never blessed them with any. Since her death, John buried himself in work. Deals, mergers, acquisitions, anything to numb the emptiness. And now, the doctor's words echoed endlessly in his mind. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months, maybe less. He sat alone in his sprawling penthouse office. Below him, the glittering lights of Manhattan sparkled like stars, but tonight they felt distant and meaningless. His fingers trembled as he folded the diagnosis report and placed it on his mahogany desk. Billions in his accounts. Yachts docked across the world. Private jets, mansions, priceless art. Yet, when death knocked, what did he truly have? 2 weeks later, John found himself wandering the streets of Brooklyn, far from his usual polished, manicured world. His driver had taken a wrong turn, and instead of luxury boutiques, they passed rows of crumbling buildings and graffiti-covered walls. At a worn-down corner, John's eyes locked onto a scene he couldn't ignore. 5 boys, ranging from around 6 to 12, sat huddled together on a cracked sidewalk. Their clothes were torn and mismatched. Their faces were smudged with grime. One boy clutched an empty cup, holding it out timidly to passers-by, who walked past without a glance. But what struck John was not their poverty, it was the way they clung to one another. Despite the hunger and hardship, they sat close like a family, their tired faces softening when one of them cracked a joke. They laughed, a rare, innocent laugh that echoed in the cold air. Something inside John stirred. Without thinking, he opened the door and stepped out. His chauffeur protested, "Sir, are you sure this is safe?" But John ignored him and approached the boys. The boys froze, eyeing him with suspicion. A tall man in a tailored suit did not belong here. John knelt down, his knees creaking from age. He smiled gently. "Do you have a home, boys?" Their silence answered him. The oldest one, maybe 12, finally spoke. "We sleep where we can. Together." John's throat tightened. "Would you like a home? A real one?" His voice was soft, almost breaking. The boys exchanged confused glances. Was it a joke? A trick? But something in the old man's tired blue eyes told them it wasn't. By the next morning, the tabloids had exploded. Billionaire adopts 5 homeless kids despite terminal cancer diagnosis. John Rivers loses mind after cancer news. Desperate last act of a dying man. At gala dinners and country clubs, people whispered and laughed. What's he thinking? He'll be dead before they finish elementary school. Just another rich man's vanity project. Pity, he was a sharp businessman once. But John didn't hear them. Or perhaps, he simply didn't care. He had papers drawn up overnight. Legal guardianship. Trust funds to ensure the boys would be cared for long after he was gone. He hired private tutors, therapists, and doctors. His mansion echoed with voices that hadn't been heard there in decades, the sound of children laughing, running through the halls, playing soccer in the sprawling garden. He gave them more than money. He gave them security. Stability. And, most importantly, love. Each boy had a story. Liam, the oldest, had been on the streets since age 7 after losing his parents in a car accident. Jaden, sharp and quick-witted, fled an abusive foster home. Caleb, quiet and artistic, never knew his father and lost his mother to drugs. Ethan, full of mischief, had a talent for fixing broken radios and electronics scavenged from dumpsters. And little Noah, only 6, didn't even remember where he came from, just that the streets were all he'd ever known. John listened to every story, held them when they cried, and cheered when they succeeded. Slowly, the boys bloomed. Liam excelled in math. Jaden discovered a love for literature. Caleb painted murals that brightened the estate walls. Ethan built a robot from spare parts. And Noah simply learned how to sleep through the night without fear. John's illness progressed quickly. Chemotherapy sapped his strength, but every time he heard the boys' laughter echo through the mansion, he felt alive. One crisp autumn evening, John lay in bed, too weak to rise. The boys quietly gathered around him. Without a word, Liam took out a framed drawing, a portrait Caleb had painted of all 6 of them together, smiling. Noah climbed onto the bed and gently laid his head on John's chest. "You're our dad," he whispered. John's lips quivered. Tears slid down his cheeks. He had feared dying alone, but here, surrounded by 5 boys who called him father, he had everything. "I'm so proud of you all," he whispered back, his voice thin and raspy. "You gave me more life in 3 months than I had in 30 years. After John's peaceful passing, many expected the boys to scatter. But they stayed together, brothers, bonded for life. Using the trust John had left behind, they founded the Rivers Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to providing education, housing, and mentorship to homeless youth across New York. The crown jewel was Rivers Academy, a school where no child was ever turned away for lack of money or family. Its front gate bore a bronze plaque, in memory of John Rivers, a father who taught us love is the greatest legacy of all. Over the years, Rivers Academy expanded nationwide. Thousands of children were educated, housed, and empowered, all because one man chose to give his final months not to despair but to hope. John Rivers didn't leave behind just wealth or buildings, he left behind lives forever changed. His final act of compassion created ripples that spanned generations. And even today, if you walk past Rivers Academy, you'll see 5 portraits hanging proudly in the entrance hall, Liam, Jaden, Caleb, Ethan, and Noah, smiling, standing tall. 5 boys who were once forgotten, but who were found by a man who had every reason to give up, and chose instead to give love. This story reminds us, you don't need a lifetime to make a difference. Sometimes, even in your final chapter, you can write the most beautiful story of all.